Amidst the boundless deserts of Egypt, where the winds carry the whispers of forgotten ages, lies a mystery that has slumbered for over 2,000 years, the lost tomb of Alexander the Great, the mighty conqueror, who once bent the world to his will, now rests hidden beneath the sands, as if fate itself sought to veil him from the gaze of time. Was it the gods who buried his immortal form in sacred soil? Or did Alexander choose to vanish into legend, his eternal sleep entwined with myth? For centuries, emperors, priests, explorers, and treasure hunters have followed his fading trail, drawn as if by a curse that speaks only in riddles, yet all they found were fragments. Faded maps, broken texts, and drifting dreams of a golden tomb lying silent beneath the ancient stones of Alexandria. Tonight, we follow those dim traces, step by step, into a labyrinth of myth and archaeology, where the stones may yet murmur truths that history has long forgotten. But when light pierces the dark, are we truly ready to face what lies beneath, or is there something, a warning, a deliberate silence, that was meant to keep us away? The journey begins now, at the very edge where history and legend become one. Imagine this: over 2,300 years ago, the greatest conqueror of the ancient world, Alexander the Great, drew his final breath within the palace of Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, in the fateful year of 323 BCE. His body, cloaked in the silence of death and secrecy, was then secretly transported by his trusted general, Ptolemy I Soter, to Memphis, a city that would become his first resting place. But this was only the beginning. It was Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who later carried Alexander's remains to the heart of Alexandria, where a grand tomb, known as the Sema, was erected in his honor, under the radiant glory of this magnificent civilization. Alexander's tomb became a sacred destination. Julius Caesar stood before it, Cleopatra mourned in its shadows, even Emperor Augustus paid homage to the sleeping legend, and then, one day, the tomb quietly vanished from the map of history. Yet the story does not end there. When historical records fell silent, by the 4th and 5th centuries CE, new mysteries began to whisper through the sands. Was Alexander's body buried deep within Taposiris Magna, where archaeologists like Kathleen Martinez now brush away centuries of dust from ancient temple stones and cryptic tombs? Could it lie beneath the foundations of the Cape Bay Citadel, a formidable fortress built atop the ruins of the legendary Pharos Lighthouse? Or perhaps, in the shadows of the so-called Alabaster Tomb, an unmarked structure in eastern Alexandria, whose size and dating whisper of a truth long concealed? The ancient tale of the Alexander romance, penned by the mysterious Pseudo-Callisthenes, speaks of a body wrapped in lead, transported in solemn procession from Memphis to Alexandria, a ritual not of death, but of eternal remembrance. And now, a recent article in The Collector dares to suggest that the tomb may have been relocated to the vicinity of this very alabaster structure, where satellite imagery and seismic surveys begin to stir the silence once more. In this video, we turn the pages of forgotten history, follow the path of modern exploration, and ask the question that has echoed through the ages: is the final mystery of Alexander the Great's resting place waiting to be unearthed beneath the very soil of Alexandria? Join us now, as we embark on a journey, veiled in myth, echoing with the breath of empires, and illuminated by the glimmer of ancient truths, still buried in the dark. Imagine this: beneath the blazing crimson twilight of a distant desert, a thunderous whisper echoes across the ancient world. Alexander the Great, the conqueror who had nearly brought the entire Hellenic world to its knees, has taken his final breath within the palace of Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, in the year 323 BCE. In his wake, he leaves behind not only a vast and trembling empire, but also a sorrow that ripples through every Greek city-state. Like a silent storm, the news spreads like wildfire, igniting power struggles among his surviving generals, while deep beneath the surface, a darker struggle unfolds. The fate of Alexander's body becomes the heart of a silent, shadowy conspiracy, determined to protect the remains of the immortal king. Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander's most loyal commanders, secretly intercepts the funeral procession, seizing the body just miles from Memphis. There, at the heart of a newly rising Greek power in Egypt, Alexander's body is laid to rest, in a humble tomb, as though the world itself were pausing, to allow his cultural legacy to seep slowly into the Nile Valley, carried by winds older than memory. Just a few years later, under the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, the sacred remains were transferred to the gleaming coastal city of Alexandria. It was here that the Sema, the sacred body, rose in radiant majesty, a tomb of splendor and power, meant not only to preserve the conqueror's form, but to proclaim his divine purpose. Legend has it that in the 1st century BCE, the most powerful figures of the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra VII, and Emperor Augustus, each passed through its hallowed gates, bowed before the shrouded body, and carried away memories that would echo through the annals of history, and then, as if swallowed by the sands of time, the Sema vanished. One day, the golden walls were no longer there, the sacred inscriptions faded into dust, and even the most learned scholars were left bewildered, whispering of Alexandria's vanishing tomb, like a forgotten curse, etched into the bones of the city. This is where our journey begins, a haunting expedition into myth and stone, to trace the final resting place of Alexander the Great, the celestial hero, who once guided the dawn of a new age. Let us step forward now into the shadows he left behind. You can almost envision it, through the time-worn lines of Pausanias, and the fading entries of the Parian Chronicle, how the body of Alexander the Great was first laid to rest in Memphis, capital of Ptolemy I, the city where the young general took his first fateful steps toward transforming Egypt into a Hellenistic realm. The image lingers, a golden coffin, gliding silently across the dunes, escorted in utmost secrecy by the royal guard, stirring hushed rumors that the emperor's remains had been embalmed with substances so rare, so otherworldly, that few could even name them. Soon after, Plutarch and Appian would record the reverent pilgrimages to the grand tomb in Alexandria, where Ptolemy II Philadelphus had raised the majestic Sema. They wrote that Julius Caesar once bowed before Alexander's sarcophagus, drawing from that silent encounter the unshakable truth of his immortality in the annals of Rome. And Cleopatra VII, with her spellbinding sway over destiny, is said to have drawn gold from the coffin itself to fund her war efforts, a gesture that later blurred the line between devotion and desecration, leaving future generations to ask, had Alexander's sacred body suffered indignity in the shadows of imperial intrigue? But the tale winds further still. In the 3rd century CE, the Alexander Romance, a twilight manuscript, where myth and truth entwine, whispers of a body, wrapped in lead, disguised as treasure, and secretly moved, from Memphis, to Alexandria. This vision of the immortal king's corpse, reflected not only the Greek belief in soul-bound sovereignty, but cast his remains, as a talisman, a sacred relic, capable of summoning national spirit, and bestowing divine legitimacy, upon its possessor. It was then that the Diadochi, those once loyal generals of Alexander, rushed into a silent war of possession. Each sought, not only to guard his legacy, but to claim divine succession. By holding the very coffin that cradled his form, beneath veils of politics, and the steel of daggers, they fought for the symbol of kingship itself, for to hold Alexander's body, was to clutch the soul of an empire in one's hands. And then, as though cursed by the very power it embodied, the tomb slipped from memory, the final lines faded, the Sema dissolved into the sands of Alexandria, leaving behind only an echo that rides the breath of the desert wind. Does anyone still hear Alexander breathe? In the next chapter, we shall peer through the microscope of time, scanning ancient stone and worn foundations for traces of the lost. But first, let the flame of wonder remain lit. For mystery is born only when the old tale takes its final breath. Through the faded ink of Pausanias scrolls and the weathered lines of the Parian Chronicle, one can almost hear the ancient breath of a moment long buried in the sands of time. the body of Alexander the Great, was first entombed in Memphis, the seat of Ptolemy I, where the young general once carved the first lines of his Hellenistic dream upon Egyptian soil. Imagine it, a procession of silent dignity, a coffin forged of pure gold, gliding through the desert, under the veil of night, flanked by silent guards, whose eyes held the weight of a secret too immense for words. Whispers soon spread that the emperor's body had been embalmed with substances so rare, so precious, that even the priests dared not name them. Not long after, the echoes of Plutarch and Appian emerged, preserving vivid accounts of the tomb in Alexandria, the grand Sema, raised by Ptolemy II Philadelphus. They spoke of Julius Caesar himself, bowing before the sarcophagus of Alexander, as though seeking communion with an eternal flame. From that moment, the legend of his name was etched into the very marrow of Rome. Cleopatra VII, sovereign of seduction and shadow, was said to have drawn gold from that very casket to fund her war efforts, an act shrouded in mystery, a gesture that haunts the conscience of history. Was the body of Alexander ever truly safe from the ambitions of the living? And yet, the story does not yield to silence. In the 3rd century CE, the Alexander romance by Pseudo-Callisthenes, woven from both fable and fact, recounts that the emperor's remains were wrapped in lead, concealed like a royal treasure, and transported under darkness, from Memphis to Alexandria. This portrayal of the immortal king's corpse was no mere tale, it was a mirror of Greek beliefs in sacred sovereignty, where a king's body became a charm, a relic of power, capable of igniting the hearts of nations, and anchoring divine rule upon the shoulders of those who held it. What followed was not just political struggle, it was a spectral war among the Diadochi. Alexander's former generals, each driven to claim the relic that bore the soul of empire. To possess that coffin was to hold dominion over fate itself. Their blades whispered in back chambers, their oaths were soaked in blood and ambition, and beneath it all lay the unspoken truth. The tomb was more than a grave, it was a crown carved in stone. Then, as if swallowed by the very force it symbolized, the tomb faded, not with a cry, but with a sigh, its name unspoken, its location lost, its memory swallowed by the dusts of Alexandria. From the final words of forgotten scribes, only the winds remain to carry the echo. Does anyone still hear the breath of Alexander? And so, as the tale dissolves into silence, a new chapter stirs beneath the surface. In the next part, we will descend into the bones of the earth, peering into fractured stones and haunted ruins, to trace what history has tried to hide. But until then, let your curiosity burn bright, for every end is but the hush before another revelation. As the golden sands of Alexandria begin to settle, a wind, salted by the western sea, carries whispers from a distant realm. Taposiris Magna, the ancient temple of Osiris, is slowly revealing secrets long buried in silence. Beneath warm limestone and the vast sweep of desert, archaeologists, under the guidance of Kathleen Martinez, have uncovered a submerged foundation, broken altars, and dozens of burial niches, stacked like pages of stone, waiting to be read. Stepping into Taposiris is like wandering into a labyrinth of memory. Crumbling columns stretch skyward like silent sentinels, traces of sacred rites linger faintly upon the walls, mingling with fallen fragments of plaster. Now veiled in sand, each shattered stone, every shard of clay beneath the rust-colored soil, murmurs the same, haunting question: could this once have been the resting place of Alexander's soul, before his golden coffin glowed in Alexandria's celestial light? Beneath the temple floor, the burial pits cluster around a great altar, once devoted to Osiris and Serapis, the hybrid deity who embodied Egypt's soul and Greece's reason. Scattered relics, broken scriptures, and votive offerings bearing the Ptolemaic seal, whisper of a gathering not only of Egyptians, but of Hellenic royalty who knelt in awe. When scholars uncovered jars filled with sacred red earth, marked by lotus blossoms, symbols of divine kingship, a ripple stirred through the academic world. Had they stumbled upon the missing piece of a forgotten legend, a royal sanctuary meant for Alexander alone? Though the veil has not yet been fully lifted, Taposiris Magna rises as the brightest candidate for the tomb lost to time. With every layer of earth peeled back, new signs emerge: the footprint of a royal railing, traces of ancient purification rituals, and fragments of sacred items reserved for sovereign blood. Now, under the pale glare of archaeological floodlights, Taposiris hums its challenge to us. Will you dare step deeper, to touch the soul realm of the great conqueror, where dust and centuries still conspire to hide the truth? In our next passage, we will turn eastward, toward the mighty walls of the Cape Bay Citadel, long believed to guard remnants of the vanished tomb. But for now, let the breath of the past guide you through this temple's shadowed corridors, where every stone still whispers of a dynasty that passed into myth. Amid the boundless ocean, the towering silhouette of the lighthouse of Alexandria, Pharos, once rose like a colossal torch, guiding ancient ships across the waves. This beacon, one of the 7 wonders of the world, now yields its place to the Cape Bay Citadel, erected in the 15th century by Sultan Cape Bay, upon the ruins of that legendary tower. Yet beneath the moss-veiled limestone of the fortress, the old world still murmurs its tales. Passing through its gate, one is struck by the thick, impenetrable walls, marks of a medieval military mind. But when a beam of light slips through a crack, it reveals something older, deeper: worn stone steps descending into the earth, leading to slender passageways, low arches, and sealed cisterns, remnants of an ancient Ptolemaic quarter, from a time when Alexandria pulsed as the heart of Greek dominion in Egypt. Beneath centuries of accumulated soil, rough-hewn stones emerge, once the gate pillars of a royal palace, alongside solemn mosaics that once lined the floors of a vanished kingdom. These spiraling tunnels, plunging 20 or 30 meters below ground, once carried grain, sheltered citizens from desert storms, and perhaps, just perhaps, concealed the greatest secrets of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Though no sarcophagus, nor funerary stele, has yet surfaced, this site remains among the most compelling candidates for Alexander's tomb. It lies near the royal temple, beside the palace complex, where Ptolemy I Soter is said to have enshrined the conqueror's body. One can almost picture Alexander, encased in solemn sheets of lead, being carried through these very corridors, passed through hidden storerooms, and brought before a sealed chamber, its stone door engraved with Hellenic script, never again opened. Now, in the dark stillness of these subterranean halls, only the soft drip of seeping water breaks the silence, echoing like the faint voice of ancient chronicles. Could the secret cradle lie beneath our very feet? With each footstep, suspicion deepens. Might this be the hidden gate to Alexander the Great's final resting place? In our next journey, we will turn to the third great clue, the mysterious alabaster tomb, where luminous white stones veil secrets handed down through generations. But first, let the chill of Cape Bay's underbelly remind you, the greatest answers often lie far below the surface, in realms untouched by light. As you wander through the surviving alleyways of eastern Alexandria, past moss-covered walls and crumbling buildings, a strange monolith emerges, the alabaster tomb, a colossal structure, built entirely from luminous gypsum stone. It reflects the sun, like a mirage, in a desert of concrete. No inscriptions, no reliefs or emblems to name its owner, only the chilling perfection of stone blocks. Fitted so tightly together, they seem to conspire in silence, guarding something. Buried deep within, through a side door, etched with modest floral motifs, daylight vanishes. In its place, a hushed warmth, radiating from the high domed ceilings, spotlights weave gently across the chambers, revealing serene sleeping quarters that descend more than 10 meters into the earth. Could this once have been the temporary resting place of Alexander the Great, before his sacred procession into Alexandria's heart, a ritual passage between the realm of the living and the immortal? Archaeologists have unearthed but a handful of artifacts within these walls, fragments of linen, still steeped in myrrh, clinging to the ceiling's edge, shards of jars, once used for embalming, and occasionally, pebbles painted in the deep blue of the Ptolemaic court. Each speaks the same silent truth: this was no tomb for a common noble, but a sanctuary fit for the ruler of an empire, where reverence lingered in every detail. The tomb has been dated to the 3rd century BCE, precisely the era when Ptolemy II commissioned the Sema at the city's core. Many scholars from the collector argue that the royal family constructed this secondary crypt as a safeguard, a place to shield Alexander's body from looters and political unrest, before transferring it to its final resting place in the center of Alexandria. Others propose that it was here, within the alabaster tomb's veiled chambers, that the rites of embalming and royal passage were performed in secret, hidden from time, and awaiting revelation. As you move deeper, the air begins to thicken, only your footsteps echo against smooth stone, joined by the steady drip of water from fractured ceilings. Each square meter seems to hold a story unspoken, a memory suspended between past and present. Are these stones protecting the remains of an eternal king, or merely standing guard over a provisional resting ground where Alexander's spirit lingered, awaiting its journey back to the mythical Sema? In that moment, you'll understand why the alabaster tomb remains the greatest enigma of them all, a structure with no clear message, a strange invitation to those brave enough to walk into shadow and seek the truth. And still, our journey does not end here, not until the final veil of mystery is torn away. Imagine the grand, yet shadow-laced procession. The coffin of Alexander, sheathed in gleaming lead, rests atop a gilded bier, carried through incense-laden streets. Around him, Greek priests perform sacred rites, bells toll in deep resonance, white lotus petals scatter across the ground, believing the great king's soul would follow the scent and soft glow to illuminate the path for an entire empire. Such is the tale of the Alexander romance, where his body was not merely a relic, but a talisman of immense power, said to hold the key to eternal kingship. But the moment the funeral convoy set forth, the darkness of ambition began to stir. Perdiccas, the general entrusted with the sacred duty of guarding the body, quickly became a marked man. In whispered councils, General Ptolemy, once a trusted companion of Alexander, hatched a quiet scheme to ambush the convoy and seize the coffin. As it neared the gates of Memphis, the image of Alexander, once serene in death, was now a prize of war, igniting fierce debates across Greece and Macedon. It wasn't only Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassander, Alexander's former generals, all craved possession of the body, for each believed to hold it was to inherit his divine right. They bargained in silence, toasted with honeyed wine, only to raise armies against each other. For a coffin adorned in gold, each man was convinced, only by laying hands on the relic, could they channel Alexander's spirit, legitimize their power, and inherit his immortal legacy. Legends whisper of a tempestuous night on the Mediterranean, when the ship, carrying Alexander's remains, was nearly swallowed by the sea. In panic, Ptolemy ordered an urgent landing. Amid howling winds, the coffin was placed in a desolate temple, almost lost to the storm's fury. But that talisman never drifted away, and in the wind's wail, an ancient curse echoed: those who steal the hero's bones shall awaken the wrath of the gods. The struggle for Alexander's corpse was not waged by sword alone, but through the rituals of politics and faith. Ptolemy had to invoke sacred ceremonies, acts of royal pardon, intricate offerings, to dispel the curse and allow for temporary burial in Memphis. Then, a year later, his brother, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, transported the body to Alexandria, where it was enshrined within the Grand Sema, marking the final leg of a profoundly sacred journey. Yet this very contest sowed seeds of doubt. If the coffin had been moved so many times, could the remains within still be whole? Had Alexander, the eternal hero, become nothing more than a pawn in a ruthless game of empire, his soul forever echoing, lost between the world of men and the realm of the divine? The whispers of that struggle still stir beneath the dust of history, and in the next chapter We'll step beyond the fallen walls, and into digitized ancient maps, to uncover whether the talisman of kingship still waits beneath the soil, or has vanished into eternal shadow. As we step into the digital age, the story of Alexander's tomb is no longer confined to ancient manuscripts. In 2024, the collector unveiled a revelation that shook the world of archaeology. The legendary tomb may have drifted eastward, gradually shifting away from Alexandria's historic center. In tandem with the city's urban sprawl, researchers now believe the traces of the fabled alabaster tomb, where the great conqueror's body may have once briefly rested, lie hidden beneath the modern streets, waiting to re-emerge amidst the pulse of a living metropolis. But the mystery deepens. Dr. Chris Naunton and his survey team have begun deploying seismic scans and remote satellite imagery to peer through the layers of rock beneath Alexandria's foundations. Recent geophysical maps have captured strange hollow formations near the corniche, voids shaped like monumental foundations, perhaps a crypt or a descending corridor into an untouched underworld. As ground-penetrating radar sweeps across the limestone vaults, the echoes it returns feel like the voices of the past, hinting that the ancient curse of the Sema may soon be undone. At the same time, urban excavations have unearthed precious remnants from the Hellenistic era, fragments of marble-lime statues, mosaics inscribed in ancient Greek, and glazed pottery shards painted in vivid blue, the sacred hue of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Each fragment is a lost puzzle piece, proof that the royal quarters of ancient Alexandria still hold secrets yet to be revealed. Now, as you watch this video, you're about to witness a journey into Alexandria's buried life, from bone chambers hidden beneath shifting soil, to the labyrinthine basements beneath the Cape Bay Citadel, and onward into cavernous spaces deep beneath the city's veins. The question is no longer just, will we find Alexander's remains? But rather, what other imperial secrets lie in wait, encoded beneath the empire's lost heartbeat? And when night falls over Alexandria, imagine the searchlights piercing through the darkness, footsteps echoing across crumbling stone. Can you feel your pulse quicken? For somewhere, in the silent deep, a hidden doorway waits to be opened. One that may finally answer questions, echoing across 2,000 years. Is the alabaster tomb truly our final destination, or merely a way station on the long, winding path toward Alexander's eternal soul? In the next chapter, we'll explore cutting-edge technologies, modern excavation techniques, and hear directly from leading experts on the front lines of this epic search. But that, my friend, is a tale for another time. Keep the flame of curiosity burning for the quest to find Alexander's resting place is far from over, and its mysteries only grow deeper with each step forward. And so, after more than 2 millennia, the tomb of Alexander the Great remains beyond our reach, veiled beneath the thick sands of Alexandria, waiting for a brave hand to unearth its secrets. But the quest for the emperor's remains is more than a search for bones. It is a journey across the radiant history of the Ptolemaic era and the solemn rituals of Greco-Roman antiquity, from the quiet of Memphis to the carved sanctuaries of Taposiris Magna beneath the mighty fort Cape Bay, and into the shadows of the mysterious alabaster tomb. Each step unveils a hidden facet of ancient culture, religion, and power. We have witnessed the scattering of lotus petals, heard the low toll of ceremonial bells echoing through labyrinthine corridors, glimpsed the ferocious power struggle between the Diadochi, and felt the pulse of a Greco-Egyptian empire breathing through time. Every clue, be it a shard of cobalt blue pottery or a half-etched inscription, is a precious fragment that illuminates the portrait of ancient Alexandria, a city of 1,001 nights, both dazzling and deeply veiled in mystery. But the journey is far from over. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, seismic surveys, and urban excavations continue to stretch the arms of discovery, sending back strange signals like whispers from the past. And through these echoes, we are reminded the greatest mystery never died. It merely waits for those who dare to face the darkness, who dare to wade into the sediment of time, in search of truth. If your heart stirs, with every shovelful of sand, if the image of a gleaming lead coffin flashes through your mind each night before sleep, then stay with us. Like this video, if it sparked the fire of curiosity within you, subscribe. And ring the bell, so you won't miss the chapters to come, where we descend into new chambers, and uncover pages of history, never seen before. And don't forget to share this journey with friends, and join the debate. Where do you believe Alexander's body lies? The alabaster tomb, Taposiris Magna, or perhaps, a secret chamber still untouched, waiting for a bold explorer? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell us the theory that left you in awe. Let's pass around the keys of wonder, because the greatest histories are born from the questions still unanswered. The journey to find Alexander the Great has only just begun.